Is your glass half empty or is it half full? Are you a pessimist or are you an optimist? Is your pessimism warranted or unwarranted? Is your optimism realistic or unrealistic? Hi, I'm John Rose. So what is it? Are you a pessimist or an optimist? I was thinking about this the other day, and then I realized that I might not know for sure what the real definition of pessimism and optimism is. I always thought I knew what the definition is, but I never really looked to see what they say the definition is. So after I thought about this the other day, I decided, well, I'm going to take a look and see what they say the definition is, to make sure I'm not missing something here. And of course, I'm always reminded when I do this that there are so many different definitions for words. It's really tricky to understand one another because there are so many definitions. It reminds me of that great quote by Gabriel Gahan: until we reduce the human language to 7 words, we'll never understand one another. But when I looked at this definition, pessimism and optimism, one way to look at it would be as a doctrine. The doctrine for optimists is the world is the best that it can be. Well, I'm sure not an optimist there. I know the world is not the best that it can be. A pessimist thinks the reality is that it is essentially evil, that the evils are going to overcome the good. So they're pessimistic from that viewpoint as far as the doctrine goes. Another way is whether or not we anticipate the best of things or we expect the worst of things. So there's several ways we can look at the definition of optimism and pessimism. And then we also have to understand that there are 3 stages of knowledge. So whenever we talk about anything, even the definition of simple words, we have to understand, are we talking about the first stage, the second stage, or the third stage? Is it possible to be pessimistic about our doctrine? Is it possible to be optimistic about our choices? Is it possible to be optimistic about the consequences of our choices? Again, 3 stages of knowledge. And I realize that I am not a pessimist as far as expecting the worst things that happen. But I know that right now there's an evil influence in our society. There is a dark side to our behavior that can make somebody want to just give up and feel helpless about this. That's partly because we've been tricked into thinking that this is outside of our control. That's just part of our DNA. We're born that way, we can't do anything about it. And that's not the case. And you would know that if you watched any of my other videos. This is a symptom, folks. The dark side to our behavior is a ill behavior, just like we have illnesses, and they're both part of our feedback system. The problem is when we look at people who are optimistic, it's unrealistic optimism. That's a form of denial. I've mentioned many times in my videos, they published a study online back in October of 2011 where they hooked up a bunch of people up to MRIs, asked them 80 questions. And guess what happened when they asked questions and took people to a place they didn't want to go? They shut their frontal lobe off. They had a mental processing error. They didn't want to entertain that idea. Basically what these scientists have done is they've illustrated how we go to denial. So that's what unrealistic optimism is. It's denial. We're in total denial about our choices, and we're in total denial about the consequences of our choices. And what we have to do is we need to be optimistic about our ability to change, but we need to be pessimistic about the choices most of us are making and the consequences that are inevitable if we don't pay attention to this. So what we have to do is we have to consider the worst case scenario. And in our case, the worst case scenario is that we can die. Now we got to look at, well, what are the odds of that happening? And that's when it gets real sad, because for most of us, those odds are extremely high. In fact, 99% of us are going to die, and it's going to be our own fault. Partially. Only because society attacked early. We were born into a belief system and a way of life that would guarantee that our own death was going to be our own fault. Because we were taught lies. Our parents taught us the same mistakes they were taught. That allowed us to make the same mistakes that they made. And that allows the hell, the dark ages that we live in now to continue. And that's all based on a lie. That this aspect of us, the evil part of humanity, is part of our DNA. And there's nothing we can do about it. That's not true. We create that symptom by what we do. We made one big mistake a long time ago that created this dark side to our behavior. They refer to it as the fall of mankind, and what we need to understand is, yes, it is a mistake that happened long ago, but it's a mistake that we continue to do today. And the greatest reality to that statement is we can stop making that mistake. We can return back to a golden age where we lived in peace and harmony. We understood how to live. We understood that we had to simply satisfy our basic needs. And the most important need we're not satisfying, and what got us on this dark path in the dark ages, was when we started altering our food. When we destroyed the sunlight energy that we're supposed to store in the nucleus of our cells, and then that allowed us to also eat foods we're not biologically adapted to eat. We end up with a bunch of crap inside of our system. Those are two huge contributing factors to this dark side to our behavior. And we don't have to continue this way anymore. And many of us, as I've mentioned so many times, can act okay, you would think, relatively speaking, despite the fact that we have a cesspool inside of us and we don't really have all of our senses. The sixth sense, the one that allows us to feel one with everything. And yet we can still be saints compared to how society is. Something's wrong with this, folks. And it's not like it's outside of our control. That's what the powers that be want us to think. They swim in chaos, they create chaos, they perpetuate chaos. And they don't want us to figure out that there's a simple solution to wake up from this nightmare. So I guess the whole point of this video is that we need to understand that we need to be pessimistic about the choices we've made in life. We need to be pessimistic about the outcome, the consequences. Because very few people are dying of natural causes, my friends. You don't want to die and have it be your own mistakes, your own fault. But more and more people are waking up to that reality. We can change what we do and we can change what we get. It's not any more complicated than that. All we got to do is understand, well, what do we do? How do we change? And this is where that dark side to our behavior comes into play. And again, we have to be pessimistic about those choices and the consequences, but we have to be optimistic about our ability to change. Our ability to have one thought before another. The ability to test an idea as time has come. So we can go where few have gone, so we can see what few have seen. And once we do that, we realize that there's a reason to be optimistic about waking up, about changing, about reaching that tipping point where all of us start to change. No, I'm not an optimist. I know the world is not the best that it can be, but I'm definitely optimistic about our ability to wake up and to the realization that we are the Goliath on this planet. That's why the mob has always been a threat to the powers that be. They know the mob can take off and do almost anything. They're the ones who are controlling everything. But as I mentioned many times in my videos, the mob is out of control. And we can't have a system to control us. We've got to realize the mob has got to gain back control. We've got to gain back control. We're out of control. That's why we have the situation we have. And there's only one way to gain back control, folks. We have to realize that we're living to eat, not eating to live. We've got to stop feeding that monster. That's where the solid food vacation comes into play. It's so exciting to take a vacation from solid food. Energy level skyrockets, mental clarity comes out of nowhere, disease symptoms, illnesses, and even the old behaviors disappear. It allows you to have a aha moment and realize, my gosh, if enough of us could experience what I just experienced, we could get people's attention. And then if the vast majority of us started doing it, it'd be a no-brainer. Remember, we're herd animals. We're going to follow the herd. We're just going the wrong way. It's going to take you guys out there, the trim tabs, who are optimistic or optimistic enough to realize this is something that's doable. I'm optimistic because it's already been done. Bill Bright had 14 million Christians doing a 40-day solid food vacation on Jesus back in 1997. It only took him 1 year to do it. He won the Temple Award in 1996, $1 million award. So, hey, I want to get 1 million Christians to take a 40-day solid food vacation on Jesus, like Jesus did it on water. Bill, good idea. Here's $1 million. Make it happen. 1 year, 14 million people. I'm not being unrealistic here at all, folks. I'm not in denial. I know the world is not the way it's supposed to be, and that's how the powers that be want us to think, don't they? Oh, the world's just the way it is. No, it's not. It's wrong. We're making mistakes. All of these illnesses and ill behaviors are part of our feedback system to try to get our attention to look at what we're doing in our belief system and change it. And we can change it. It's within our grasp to make these changes. It's just hard right now as long as the herd's going the wrong way. That's why it's so important that you guys continue your role on the hero's journey. Be the trim tabs. Be the change you want everyone else to see. Keep adding comments to my YouTube channel. Keep making videos. Keep sharing what you're doing on a solid food vacation. How people realize there is an idea as time has come. There is something that can change our mentality and give us a new optimism for a better way of life based on a better mode of nutrition that's based on our species-specific diets. Understanding we're not in ideal conditions anymore, might need to slightly modify that. It's not an indictment on our species-specific diet. It's an indictment on the fact that we haven't been following it for as long as we have. Things have changed. Hopefully we can go back to that time where we won't have to modify anything. That's going to take probably like 7 generations once we wake up. Because we plan 7 generations ahead. That's all we have to do. Right now, we've lost that knowledge. But if enough of us can get everyone's attention, if we can reach that 100th monkey, so to speak, and get enough people's attention so that we reach the majority, and everything starts to change exponentially, things will manifest in ways we can't even comprehend right now. It's exciting to think of what this world could be like if it wasn't such an illusion, where we have all these false beliefs that are keeping us where we are on so many levels. That's why I say many times in my videos, we've got to empty our cup when it comes to knowledge of how to live. We got to empty our cup about when it comes to the powers that be. We got to empty our cup when it comes to everything we've been taught about politics and religion and education and media, everything. We got to simply empty our cups. As Huxley once said, T.H. Huxley, sit down before fact like a little child and be prepared to give up every preconceived notion. Follow humbly to wherever and whatever abyss nature leads you, or you shall learn nothing. We're violating laws of nature, folks. We're not eating our species-specific diet. We're so far removed from that simple natural act that we live in hell. We live in the dark ages. And it's easy to be pessimistic because right now that's what's happening. Evil seems to be in control. They're controlling our educational system, so our health experts don't know anything, doctors don't know anything, nutritionists don't know anything. They're controlling all the other education, so our historians don't know anything. We don't know the truth about what happened last century, and it's going to repeat itself. When we try to wake people up, they get all emotional about it because they've been lied to for so long. They think certain things are true when they're told they're not. They can't handle the truth. They shut off their frontal lobe. Unrealistic optimism. Some of you people are unrealistic, and you don't understand how we have to take pessimism and look at that sometimes pessimism is warranted. If the worst case scenario is you're going to die and the odds are 99%, that's warranted pessimism. But you should be excited about the possibility you can change that. You should be optimistic enough to realize that you can change your life overnight just by changing your thoughts, by changing your identity, by making the decision, which we know is always the hardest part on a new journey. That first step going the other way is always the most difficult step. That's why everyone points out that the decision is so important. Once you decide to take a solitary vacation, once you have that light bulb moment within a week, once you have the aha moment within several months, there's really no turning back, because you've come out of Plato's cave. And you can't exist outside Plato's cave by yourself. You're still part of the cave because the vast majority of your friends and family are down in the cave. And what happens when you go back down in the cave and try to get them to look into the light so they can see the truth? They get all angry at you, don't they? Why are you hurting me? Why are you making me look into the light? It hurts my eyes. Why do you want to hurt me? The truth hurts for some people. Others welcome it. So I guess what we have to do is try to find the ones that are eager to learn. Realize that if people aren't ready for the truth, they're just not part of the first wave of heroes. First of three waves. First wave of heroes, we are the trim tabs. We're the rudder on the rudder to turn the ship away from that iceberg. Then, once we reach the 100th monkey, critical mass, now we become the rudder. Now we can turn our ship away into another direction. That's when a bunch of geezers are going to jump on board on that second stage of knowledge. They're the most unwilling people now, the generation above me, to make changes. But I guarantee you, once we reach the tipping point, these guys are going to be so excited about the prospect of having a brand new life and having another 20, 30 years that were better than the last 30 or 40 or 50 or 60 years. That's what we're offering here, folks, with the hero's journey. A brand new life, a better existence, a life where we can be optimistic because the world finally is the best that it can be. And the only way that's going to happen is if when you guys become the best that you can be, and when all that happens, ow, this planet's in for a treat.